Hi, I'm Andrew. I created this channel for one reason. I want you, no matter who you are, to know what the Bible actually says. Regardless of what you believe, or if you don't believe in anything, your life is better if you are familiar with this book. I am not going to tell you what to think. I only seek to encourage you along the way. Isaac gets no respect, relatively speaking, but kind of like the middle book in a really great trilogy, his life was no less important. Isaac's accomplishments go largely ignored or forgotten. He was the only one who didn't need a name change from God, and we will soon see that Isaac was absurdly good at farming. He was the one who was acceptable as a sacrifice to God. And I would say of the three, although they all led extraordinarily long lives, his lifespan is just a little longer than that of Abraham's and of Jacob's. Isaac and Rebekah, we're told, had also struggled to have kids. For them it was 20 years without success, until Isaac prayed to God, and God answered. Rebekah is pregnant with twins, and she can literally feel the contention inside of her. God tells her, there are two nations in your womb. And so far, in every example, it always seems to be the younger who is favored by God. And the younger of the two twins is Jacob. This name Jacob, it actually refers to the act of clinging to his brother's heel as they are being born. And these twins could not be more different. It seems if there's anything that Isaac does that's wrong, it is to show favoritism to one child over the other. Rebekah's favorite was Jacob, but Dad liked Esau. From an early age, his oldest twin seems to be good at hunting and bringing home delicious animals. But as the boys are growing up, there is a day where Esau comes home empty-handed from his hunt. Esau complains to Jacob, saying he is going to die if he doesn't eat in that moment. Now, Jacob could have just given Esau the food, but he says, "Trade me your birthright." Now, whatever that means exactly, it clearly didn't mean much to Esau. And there's an internal logic of, who cares if I have birthright if I die from starvation? But for me, it's hard to see his position of I'm about to die as anything more than exaggeration. Now God tells Isaac to take his family, just like Abraham and Sarah did before, to the area where Abimilech is, to escape yet another famine. Now there are far too many parallels with Abraham's time in Gerar to recount them all here, but what is different this time is that Isaac seems to have no problem farming during this famine and making himself wealthy in the process. And so much so that Abimilech says, "You are too powerful, go away." Now, out in some nearby valleys, Isaac discovers more sources of water. He ends up digging 3 wells because with each of the first 2, the locals show up and claim it. Abimelech comes out and finds Isaac at Beersheba, the very site where Abraham had given him the sheep before. He acknowledges that Isaac is favored by God, and he asks that they establish their own peace agreement between them. Now, by age 100, Isaac seems to have a significant visual impairment. He tells Esau to go get him some of the wild meat that he likes, and then Isaac will give him a blessing. It's going to be just like Jacob's deal with Esau, but in reverse. Rebekah, though, decides to co-opt this blessing for Jacob, so she helps him deceive dear old Dad, and he pretends to be Esau. Now, when Esau returns and finds out his blessing was stolen, he is beyond angry. He says he wants to kill his deceiving brother after their dad passes away. Here's the odd thing about that, though. Isaac will live for another 80 years. Now, there is an ancestor who would have died around this time, Shem. Shem, who had outlived so many of his descendants. Someone they all probably thought would never die, lived to the ripe old age of 600. So let's just say it is possible that Isaac's family thought he was about to give up the ghost, but also it is a possibility that it was Shem's demise that Rebekah had to be concerned about. Isaac now gives Jacob a new blessing. Mom and Dad now seem to be united on the idea of getting Jacob safely away from Esau. Rebekah tells Jacob, go back to her hometown and get a wife from among her family. And if the family tree wasn't already overlapping enough, Esau now responds by seeking out Ishmael and getting his half-uncle to give him one of his daughters to be Esau's third wife. For his part, Jacob does find his way to Uncle Laban. On the way there, he has a remarkable vision one night of angels ascending and descending some sort of stairway connecting heaven and earth. It is important to keep in mind that Jacob grew up being deceptive, and his own mother helped him in the biggest deception. Uncle Laban proves to be no better. Jacob pledges to serve his uncle for 7 years, if it means by the end of it he can marry Laban's daughter, Rachel. Now, what likely would have happened on the wedding night was that there was some sort of marriage ceremony and dinner and so forth, after which Jacob could take his new bride to a semi-private location, take off her veil and other clothing, and consummate the marriage. And in this instance, when Jacob woke up the next morning, he realized that Laban had married him to Rachel's older and considerably less attractive sister, Leah. Maybe Rebekah should have warned Jacob that her side of the family couldn't be trusted, but Laban offers to Jacob that he can have Rachel as well for another 7 years of work. Incidentally, I've seen many people get this sequence confused. Laban only needs Jacob to complete the week of Leah. In other words, after your 7-day staycation honeymoon, you can have a redo and you can marry Rachel for real this time, but then work the additional 7 years for the wife you wanted in the first place. As much as I've called attention to the significant numbers of the Bible, it is easy to see them when they're right there in front of you. But one should also look deeper into the context to see these things at work. Jacob was the third patriarch in a succession, but now the family tree finally goes horizontal. Let's just say that sibling rivalry takes on a different form where Laban's daughters are concerned, and Leah, the unloved first wife, seems to be very good at one thing. Before we blink, there are 4 sons of Jacob, all of them born to Leah. Now, Rachel certainly would have gotten the lion's share of Jacob's affection, but she is still childless at this point. Rachel says, "Give me children, or I will die." And Jacob isn't happy with her for saying this. Maybe it reminded him of Esau demanding food. But next she says here, "Take my maidservant and make children with her." 2 more sons are born, even though Rachel still hasn't been a mom. Leah decides, well, she'll play by Rachel's rules and says, "Well, here's my maidservant." Now there's 2 more sons. But it turns out Leah isn't done either. 2 more sons are born to Leah, and somewhere along the way, a daughter as well. So finally, after 11 children are born, we're told God remembered Rachel, and she begets Jacob, a son. And a little later, there will be 1 more son from Rachel. So all told, God's promise to Abraham really starts to take shape after the 3 generations, and along with 1 daughter, the sons of Jacob comes to 12. After 20 years of working for his father-in-law, Jacob discusses with both wives about returning to the land of his childhood. They both agree that fleeing from Laban seems like the best strategy. So they all pack up and they get a 3-day head start. Laban hurries after them, so it will be 7 days before he catches up to confront Jacob. Now when she left, Rachel took some statues that Laban called his household gods. Jacob, who didn't know about this, tells Laban that if he can find any stolen goods, then the thief will be executed. Rachel hides the statues under her seat, and when Laban comes searching, she just tells her dad that she can't stand up because it is that time of the month. She deceives Laban and saves her own skin. Laban heads home, but Jacob still has another problem ahead, namely his brother Esau. He sends servants with gifts ahead. Then he helps his whole family across a particular river, but stays behind on the other side for the night. A mysterious stranger comes at night and wrestles Jacob. At one point, the stranger strikes Jacob on the hip. By daybreak, the stranger tries to flee, but Jacob holds on to him, demanding a blessing. The stranger tells him that his name is now Israel. The name means strives with God. So Jacob asserts, rightly I think, that he wrestled with God. It isn't even a humble brag. He says he confronted God face to face and still lived. It was probably then, for Jacob's sake, that the stranger was trying to flee before the dawn. And by the end of this journey, Jacob, now Israel, reunites with his brother Esau, who has decided to forgive and forget the past.